All right, welcome to Trend Micro's Spotlight session, where we aim to shine a revealing light on the hidden dangers lurking in today's digital world. In each of these sessions, we're bringing together leading voices from cybersecurity, from law enforcement, government, and advocacy organizations to share real-world insights and practical tips. My name is Marike Kuyper, and I'm part of the consumer education team at Trend Micro. Today, we're joined by Eva Velasquez, CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center, also known as the ITRC. They're a nonprofit dedicated to reducing the risk and impact of identity theft by offering free personalized victim assistance. They also conduct in-depth research, advocate for stronger policies, and develop educational materials to help everyone stay informed and protected. Eva, welcome to our Spotlight session.
I am so happy to be here. I can't wait to dig in.
Eva, you spent years at the district attorney's office and the Better Business Bureau, and now you're leading the ITRC. What first drew you to consumer protection and identity crime prevention?
Well, thank you for being so kind and saying years. It was decades. I spent decades at the DA's office, and it was where I started my career. I was in the fraud department, and there were a couple of pieces there. The first one is just that, the puzzle pieces of putting together what was happening um, was very appealing to me. But once I realized how few resources we have for this crime type, that was when I was absolutely bit by the bug. It's such an important issue. And when you look at consumer protection on the whole, that is something that affects everybody. This is not a niche problem. So it was a combination of so many problems to solve, mysteries to solve, and so many people to help that I just was like, I love working with fraud and identity crimes very broadly, identity theft, misuse, scams, fraud, cybercrime, all of those pieces.
So, for viewers who may not actually be familiar, can you explain what identity theft actually is and what it can look like for victims, and then also how the ITRC helps them?
Well, identity theft and misuse, it actually really is sort of a two-part equation. So we have identity theft, the stealing of your identity credentials, the information that's needed to prove that you are you. So you do that in your everyday life when you want to apply for a credit card or log into an account or even open a new account. Someone with that information can pretend to be you. And that's where the misuse comes in. So theft, the stealing of those credentials, misuse, the actual use of them for some kind of gain, usually monetary gain, but it can be others, they just to get more data. And victims find out about this in a variety of ways. I think a lot of people think it's just credit card. It's just something to do with financial instruments. And while it's true that that is always the end goal, you can have financial gain without just opening a credit card in someone's name. You can get medical goods or services. You could get prescriptions. You can apply for government benefits in someone's name, like unemployment. We saw a huge spike in unemployment, fraudulent unemployment claims during the pandemic. So it again, there's so many ways that your identity can be misused. Think about all the ways that you use it legitimately. And
Mhm.
that is a number of ways that it can be misused if those credentials are in the wrong hands. And we at the ITRC will help people with direct one-on-one assistance, whether it's recovery assistance because they have discovered that they are a victim, or if it's consumer education, they need help making a decision. And I love that we help with this issue across the entire spectrum, no matter where that person is on their journey. Are they a concerned consumer just looking for general information? Have they encountered something that they need help with right now and need to make a decision? Or are they saying, oh, I did something, I made a mistake, or this thing happened to me, and now I need recovery help? And we can help them all along the way. And it's all at no cost to them.
That's fantastic. So you're really supporting them from raising awareness all the way through to recovery if it happens.
Mhm.
Do you think you could give us some examples of, what what do scammers, rely on mostly? Would it be like phishing emails or stolen mail or data breaches? What's the most common thing that you see?
Well, I'm both biased and the data shifts. So I'm biased because we at the ITRC have maintained the largest repository of publicly reported data breaches since 2005.
Wow.
And data breaches really are fueling identity crimes. At the same time, whenever there are new tools introduced, new external events that the scammers want to capitalize on and exploit vulnerabilities, then you're going to see, that ebb and flow. So
Mhm.
data breaches, I think, is number one. Phishing, oh my gosh, phishing and social engineering. Um, with AI kind of coming into the mix, the bar for entry for someone to perpetrate these scams, it's so incredibly low. But
Mhm.
then I also don't want to forget about things, again, that we hear about every day, that analog type of stealing and misuse. You've got a relative that has access to your credentials. Maybe someone stole your mail. Maybe it's a roommate. We talk with foster youth who unfortunately have their credentials really out in the wild. They're in a lot of local government databases. They are with biological parents. They're with multiple foster families. So
Mhm.
there's both analog and digital. Digital, by far, the scope and the scale is much bigger, but analog still happens.
So for these data breaches that you mentioned, they seem really constant these days. I know I'm constantly getting letters in the mail saying my data has been breached by, from a company. In your
Mhm.
opinion, are companies really keeping our data safe, or has maybe the current climate of deregulation, is that making it harder to protect consumers?
As far as companies keeping it safe, it's really hard to make that broad statement. I think some companies are doing their best. They really are following all of the best practices, meeting more than the minimum standards, but it only takes one vulnerability. I always think about the velociraptors. This is taking you back old school in Jurassic Park, how they would test the fences for weakness, and that's
Mhm.
all they did all day long. And they were just waiting for that 5 minute moment when the power was out. That's what the scammers are doing. They're
Mhm.
just testing for those weaknesses. At the same time, um, I'm not, I think for the deregulation question, I think jury's out. I don't think we're seeing the results of this yet. We
Mhm.
are definitely continuing to see a lot of breaches this year, which I'm very surprised by. We had a record year. We've seen this new baseline over the last couple of years, and the normal trend has been you'll kind of have a peak and then it'll dip. It's not like it crashes, it'll dip a little bit because the bad actors are busy monetizing that data, and then a year, 2 or 3 years, they come back, they need a refresh of that data.
Right,
One
because they
that's
steal like millions of accounts at a time sometimes, right? So
oh,
they're looking at that for information to
they're
then
looking
run the
for all
scam.
of that data and then they monetize it. It's cyclical, but I think the cycle is shifting a little bit. Too early to tell exactly what it's going to be, but it's something we're keeping an eye on.
And if you're one of these folks listening and you have had your information stolen in a data breach, what should you do? If I get that notification, how soon should I act and what kind of action should I take?
I always tell people react, don't panic. So I don't want people having a panic attack or great deals of anxiety. I also don't want you to shove it in a drawer and say, I'll get to that later. It,
Mhm.
take a look at the notice, make sure that you understand specifically what data was breached. Not all breaches are created equal. And the way that you remediate or recover from a breach and protect your information, it's going to be very different depending on what that data is. So if your social security number and other information was compromised that would allow a thief to open new lines of credit, then I'm going to tell you freeze your credit right away. That's your first step if it's not already frozen. Conversely, if you get a notification that your username and password is what has been breached, I'm going to tell you immediately, first step, change your password. upgrade your password game. So it is that important to know what that, specifically what type of data has been breached. And if you can't tell that from the breach notice, then I encourage people, you need to contact the company.
Mhm.
That is, it really is their responsibility to be as transparent as possible and give the affected people the information that they need so that they can act accordingly.
So it sounds like take a moment to take some inventory as to what was
Mhm.
lost, figure out what was lost, contact them if you don't just know what kind of information that company had about you. And you mentioned freezing credit. Can you quickly tell us, for those who don't know, what is freezing your credit? What does that mean?
Well, it's the most proactive and robust consumer protection step that you can take that's available to us. And what it does is it allows you to take that credit profile that is used by lenders to look at your credit worthiness and determine if they're going to extend credit to you or loan, a mortgage, all of those different things. You can freeze that so that no one else has access to it except for you and the organizations that you already have a relationship with. So if a thief has all of your data and they try to apply for a credit card, it can't go through because your credit needs to be thawed. So it's a really easy process now. It used to be very cumbersome. And in fact, I love that we're talking about this because we just received a donation of frozen pie. It was developed by a longtime partner of ours, Tom O'Malley, and he has donated this to the ITRC. We're now powering that. It is a one-stop shop for people to come and get the information that they need. If they want to freeze their credit, it's right there. The links to the different bureaus. We have a page with all of the specialty bureaus because sometimes people don't realize how many there are. It's just
Right.
a
People in the
wealth of
US are aware
information.
that there are three main bureaus in the US. In Canada, I believe there's two. And unfortunately, this freezing credit isn't necessarily something that, like, if folks are tuning in globally, that's available to everyone. But I know for the United States, it's available in all 50 states to consumers, which is
It
fantastic.
is.
Mhm. That's wonderful. So, coming back to the data breaches, many viewers that might be tuning in, they could be small business owners, or they might be entrusted with handling some customer data.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the biggest risks that they should be aware of, and how can they proactively safeguard themselves and their customers?
I usually tell the small business owners that I interact with to treat their business the same way they treat their individual identity and doing things like checking your business credit profile regularly. And you can do that on Dun and Bradstreet, but also the major three. You can look there, signing up for alerts for any of the business credit cards for your banks, reviewing the business's public records for any unauthorized changes. And then as far as protecting their customers, train your staff.
Mhm.
That is often, and I say this not, I'm not being pejorative here. It's just, it's the weakest link. We're being deluged. Your staff are customers and people, they're consumers too. They're
Mhm.
getting deluged with these things. So good training and creating a culture of cybersecurity, of data protection, privacy, and data minimization, that comes from the top down. So having really good policies to safeguard your customer data in regards to data collection. If you don't need it, don't collect it because it
Do you
can't be
know
reached if you don't have it. And then retention and disposal. So all of those kind of the knowing that there's a lot of different things that go with the collection of that data and making sure that you know what the best practices are and then following them.
Does the ITRC actually offer any resources, or do you know of resources specifically tailored to small businesses or startups that you could point them toward?
We do offer solutions for small businesses. We have a lot of free resources. We also have paid resources for businesses. We use that money when we sell our services to the business community. We use that money to fund our free services for individuals. So not only are you getting the great information that you need for your business at a very reasonable price, because we're not looking to make a profit, we're just looking to make sure we're funding our mission, and you can know that you're also supporting a nonprofit that's trying to do good in the world.
That's fantastic. Uh, Good, great information for those who are those small business owners that are listening in. So for scams these days, we're seeing that they're often AI powered. It seems to be more common right now. Do you think AI is changing the game for scams and then identity thieves? And how can consumers actually stay protected as these tools that they're using are becoming more sophisticated?
I do think AI has changed the game 1000%. Um, it is no longer possible for an individual to like using the naked eye to tell if something is legitimate or not just based on appearance. We 10 years ago we used to train people how to tell that an email was fake, and we'd look for grammar errors and fuzzy logos and syntax issues. And to be sure, some of that still exists. You'll still see it. But the
Mhm.
level of perfection and sophistication in a lot of these phishing emails, text messages, fake websites, I just tell people it's impossible. You can't tell. So what you need to do is go to the source and verify, especially if you didn't initiate the contact. If it's incoming, an email, a text message, a phone call, a social media DM, you don't need to engage on that platform in that way. You can go directly to the source and verify. And I love that advice because it's universal. I mean, it just applies across every scenario and every platform. So if that's the one thing folks remember today, it's go to the source and verify. You don't need to engage immediately.
That's great advice. Absolutely. And we know that, as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about credit cards. There can be all kinds of fallout from identity theft that occurs to you, whether medical, reputational. So, what kind of non-financial consequences do you see most often for folks who have become victims? And then how do you help them recover? Because there's such a variety of things that can happen.
Well, I think when it comes to the non-financial, it's twofold. One is the domino effect, and then one is the emotional effect that's going to permeate, all aspects of their life. So with that domino effect, it, if someone has their identity misused and they are trying to use it themselves, they are trying to prove they are who they say they are, it can stop you from moving forward in your life until you resolve that issue. So it can be things like young people trying to pursue higher education and get student loans. They can't. Someone trying to get a new job or even get a promotion at a job or a security clearance. They can't. Renting an apartment. It's those types of things. And then there's that emotional impact, which our data shows that people lose trust. They feel shame and embarrassment.
Mhm.
Some folks even feel suicidal. Far too large of a number of folks feel suicidal. And so those emotional impacts will also affect people's lives. They become disengaged. They don't want to engage online. They don't want to tell anybody what's happened to them. And so their recovery is stalled because they're not getting the help that they need. And that's where we come in. Again, we provide those one-on-one recovery plans. And this is what I love about our organization is that not only do we help you with that immediate need and give you that recovery plan, we will also give you educational materials and guides so you can protect yourself in the future. And
Mhm.
I really like that we do both. Now, not right away. We take our time. You get a case manager, and you move at your own pace. But in the end, we want people to feel empowered and capable. So even though something like this has occurred and they're dealing with this issue in their life, they feel like they can get up again. And then they also know in the future they have a place to go if they have a question. They're not in it alone.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like your support isn't just a one-time phone call. It sounds like there's support for them, over a longer period of time so that recovery, it seems like you've recognized recovery takes time. And so we're going to help you at different stages.
Well, and we have to treat the individual. We have to help that person, and they're going to have different needs. We meet them where they are. And again, like you said, if it's a long phone call, fine. If it
Mhm.
takes an hour, 2 hours, fine. If it takes 5 minutes, that's fine. We're here for them. So they
Mhm.
can dictate the kind of those terms. How can you help me? And they can let us know how we can help them, but we give them the expert advice as well. There's just a really nice synergy there.
We know we've heard from other guests as well that underreporting is real, that there's a lack of coming forward and reporting. I don't know if you have statistics about that or any message to people. How can they overcome sort of that stigma to seek help sooner and to actually come forward?
It's hard to get good data around a non-event, right? Someone not reporting that event, but we just know from our experience that people aren't coming forward, and it is that shame of that sense of shame and embarrassment. I think everybody needs to play a role in this. So not just the person who's having the experience. Yes, we need to convey to them that there's nothing to be ashamed about. I often tell victims, if you fell and broke your leg and you went to the hospital, you wouldn't be angry at yourself because you couldn't set your own leg. You would
Hmm.
go to a doctor and say, yep, this is beyond my skill set, so help me heal. It's the same principle. But I also think both folks in the space, like me, like us, and the media, have a real obligation. The way that we talk to, but also about victims and victimization is very, very important. And I still see it. When we say people were duped, when we say they were fell for, when we step back and go, I can't believe they did that. How could they not see that? That
Yeah.
is adding to it. And even if you feel like I didn't say it out loud, people can sense that. They can sense your feeling like they're incapable. And I
Yeah.
also think, particularly for seniors, we need to do a better job of conveying to them. Seniors are often concerned that if they make a mistake, particularly with their finances, that their network, their friends and family, their loved ones are going to think they're no longer capable of making their own decisions.
Mhm.
And while that's true, that we have cognitive decline as we get older and sometimes impairment, we cannot look at scam victimization or identity crime victimization as the single litmus test for
Mhm.
someone not being able to make their own decisions. We really have to parse that out, and we have to let people make mistakes and know it's okay to come forward and get the help that they need, and not that we're automatically going to go, okay, you're no longer capable of taking care of your own affairs.
Yeah. Do you actually have an idea of what the real demographics of victims look like? So what does a identity theft victim present as? Is it all ages, all backgrounds? Can you give us a little window as to maybe that myth and
Oh
counter
my
it?
gosh, yes, I can. And you are bringing up like one of the things that I'm beating the drum on. I am trying to get this across to folks because I hear this all the time. Who's the most vulnerable? It's seniors, right? Who's the most vulnerable? Oh, it's the youngest cohort. It's Gen Alpha or um, Gen Z. No, everybody is vulnerable.
Hmm.
Everybody is vulnerable, just differently. It's not about your age, it's how you engage in the outside world, particularly the digital world, not just your age. And if we look at the data across our data, the FTC, IC3, any given year, you will see that a particular cohort has a slightly higher reporting rate. So go, oh, well, this year it's the cohort of 35 to 44-year-olds are reporting the most victimization. Factually accurate statement, but it really doesn't give you the big picture, which is the delta between those other age groups is maybe 1 or 2%. Aside
Hmm.
from the very young and the very old, we really are all vulnerable to this. And I would say just about equally, with some exceptions. So it's not dependent at all on your age. And that's a myth I'd really like to dispel.
Yeah, I've heard it said it's not if, but when. So it's not if you'll be scammed, but when you'll be scammed, or
Well,
at
and if
least
you,
an attempt will be made by scammers to victimize you.
oh, I mean, the attempts are being made by scammers to everyone. You are getting attempts every single day. I don't care who you are. It's happening. And we have to, even myself, look, I put myself in this category. I'm not removed from it. Given the right set of circumstances, I'm going to have, there's going to be a higher likelihood that I could believe this lie that is being told to me. So let's, if we stop calling it scams and saying, oh, I'm gullible because someone lied to me, do I believe this or not? And if it happens to be from a retailer or a vendor that I recognize, I had a recent interaction with them, maybe I'm waiting on some communication, I'm making dinner, talking to my kids, the dog is under my feet, I could go on and on. If I'm
Mhm.
distracted and there's a lot going on, then it's quite possible that I could get that email and go, oh, that's what I was looking for, and not read it because I'm not taking my time and click on that link.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me gullible, it makes me human.
Even amongst folks I've spoken to, whether they are head of a company or even they work in cybersecurity, I've heard stories where they've all, at one time or another experienced a scam, a cyber criminal has made their way through. You
Mhm.
know, our online habits can be really good and we can even employ the right software tools. There's still this possibility of us clicking into something, giving our credentials away without realizing that we're doing so, et cetera. And
There's
because
those velociraptors again, testing the fence,
Mhm.
and we're the fence.
So is there one practice or a couple practices? You talked about credit freezes. Is there anything else that everyone should be adopting right now to kind of reduce that risk and secure their fence to protect themselves from identity theft?
Look, there are a number of things that people can do. So I always encourage people to practice good identity and cyber hygiene. So think of it like a practice. If you went to a doctor and said, how do I stay healthy? They wouldn't tell you to do one thing. They would say, well, brush your teeth, Eva, and then you don't have to do anything else. Get enough sleep, eat right, exercise, brush your teeth, wash your face. And I feel like identity hygiene and cyber is the same way. We want to put together a practice, have these small habits add up. But where do we start? The big three, the top three that I tell everybody: freeze your credit, which we already talked about, update your password game. Please, please, please. Use unique passwords across all of your accounts. Don't use the same easy password. Unique passwords, 12 characters or longer. It can be a passphrase. It's just important that it's not a single word out of the dictionary, which by the way can be cracked in like less than a second,
Mhm.
and that it's unique to you. And use a password manager if that's intuitive to you. Yes, that's a service that you have to pay for in many cases, but use it if that's unique to you. And for the seniors that are listening, write them down. It is okay, with some caveats here. I am not saying put them on a Word document. Do not put them on your phone or on your computer. But if you have a notebook or a notepad in a secure location in your home that you can put away, and that's going to help you have longer and unique passwords, I would much rather that you do that than use the same easy password across all of your accounts. It's really, again, it's about reducing your risk surface. You're never going to get it to zero, but you can get it much further down.
Yeah, we hear that folks have sometimes upwards of 150 online accounts that, you've opened it with a retailer or you've, bought tickets to something or you have an
Oh,
account
yeah.
with your flights or your hotels or your email, et cetera. So there's so many passwords to manage and we do want to keep them updated because of the breaches that occur, especially.
Right.
So we do want to be switching them. So that's a lot to manage and keep track of. So if you're not using a password manager or you don't have a system, it can become overwhelming. And I think that's why a lot of people just resort to the same password and a simple password that they feel they can remember.
They can remember.
Yeah.
Well, but there's good news on that front. And the last thing that to round out the top three,
Yep.
we always tell people to enable MFA. I have t-shirts that say enable MFA, multi-factor authentication. It's that second step. You get that one-time use token so that even if a bad actor has your username and password, if they're not getting that one-time use token, they can't log into the account.
So that
The
would be like a
reminder,
text message going to your phone or
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 the
a,
email.
a pin going to your email, right?
and then you enter that in. The caveat there is never share that with anybody. I don't care how legitimate the reason sounds. It's not legitimate. The only use for that code is to put it into the account that you're logging into. You never have to give it to another person. And better yet, passkeys. Enable passkeys wherever they're offered, because now you don't have to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've taken that burden away, and we're seeing wide adoption of passkeys, and I think it's very promising for that particular vulnerability. Well, it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve every identity problem that we have out there, but it does solve that problem very well.
That's wonderful advice. So one thing that I did notice about the ITRC is you are advocating for better policies. And so would you like to see more collaboration between government bodies to protect consumers, or perhaps between nonprofits or tech companies? What's missing from the broader conversation here?
We would absolutely like to see more collaboration. And I would like to see NGOs, nonprofits, working more closely with all the stakeholders. So, I've always felt like nonprofits fill gaps. We fill
Mhm.
gaps between what government provides to its citizens and the services that industry provides that people pay for. And this is an issue. While yes, there are a lot of very legitimate products in this space, if a business was going to make money offering free identity recovery services, they would have done it by now. It's not possible. That's why a nonprofit exists, to fill that gap. Well, it's becoming a chasm. And so I would like to see government, more acknowledgement from the government just about just how serious this problem is. And not just on the prevention side. Yes, prevention, detection, best practices. We're involved in all those conversations and want to see more of it. But until we create the perfect system that doesn't have victimization, we have got to do more and provide more robust recovery services and victim services. I mean,
Mhm.
people need our services, but they need other things too. I mean, even things like peer support, which is out there, but there's not enough of it.
Mhm.
And a lot of programs, especially within the criminal justice system, they won't pay for those needs because they're reserved only for violent crime victims. And, that's something I would like to see us all looking at policies, both public policies, but also private policies,
Mhm.
company policies, in doing the things that are going to ensure we reduce the victimization rate and we reduce the impact if you are victimized.
It's interesting. We spoke to a member of law enforcement in our last session, and he was saying we really shouldn't treat victims of these types of cybercrimes any differently than we would a stabbing victim, because while one is physical and they go to the hospital and you could say, yes, that's a very violent crime, they need support. There are all those things that you spoke about earlier, the implications that even go beyond finance that victims really suffer. Yeah.
Oh, I love him. I want to work with him. We'll have to get together. And we actually do a lot of support and programs for law enforcement. Our live chat is embedded on numerous local LEAs, on state. We're on New Mexico Attorney General's office website. We get referrals from the FTC. So we absolutely love working with law enforcement so that they can focus on the piece that is their piece that they own, and that's doing the investigation, finding the bad guy. That's what they do. And I know that because that's what I used to do. And then there's victim recovery. Well, let us do that for you. So we have many, many, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of collaborative partnerships with law enforcement agencies all across the country, where when they encounter those victims and give them their police report, they then send them to us to answer any questions and just provide the level of support that they don't have the resources to do.
Sure, they're very grateful you exist, and I'm sure the victims are grateful to have your support as well. And now you've been at the forefront of this fight for a while. So what keeps you personally motivated? And do you have a success story that stands out as particularly inspiring, perhaps?
I love the stories that we have. Um, there's one that I'll just tell you a recent one. And that was a woman that was about to be victimized by a government and bank impersonator scam. And she was going to take all the money out of her 401, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now her provider that knew her, they were very concerned. And so they started putting up some barriers and saying, we need more information. So they slowed that transaction. She then contacted us. We told her that it was a scam. She was
Mhm.
told not to tell the people at the brokerage because it was an insider job and they were trying to catch the insider. It was a very clever scheme. But we then told her, no, this is absolutely a scam. Long story short, she understood that. She never moved the money. She didn't lose them. She came very close, but she didn't lose it. Those kind of stories absolutely are, you step back from that and go, that's why we do what we do. But at the same time, what really, really keeps me going, it's not one story here and
Mhm.
there. It's not one really compelling story or something where things were just horrible, but the person was okay. It's the hundreds of thousands of stories all added up over the last 12 years that I've been here. When I think about the number of people, we just did our annual report. It was close to 2 million people that we helped over the last 2 years through all of our various
Staggering number.
services.
Wow.
When I think about that, that's what keeps me going
Mhm.
is if not us, then who would step in and fill those shoes? And I just don't know who it would be. And I don't want to leave that huge gap for people. So
Mhm.
it's, like I said, it's the thousands and thousands and thousands of stories throughout the years that really keep me going. And I love that this work. It's very purposeful. It's also
Mhm.
very intellectually stimulating because I tell you, as much as I hate the bad guys, they are a crafty lot. Mm,
They keep us all on our toes, right?
right?
So, for those who want some immediate help or to learn more about preventing identity theft, do you have a resource to point them toward, or do you want to tell our listeners what your website is so that they can head there if they need help?
Sure. For folks who want information and just want to see what's out there, you can go to our website. It's ID, so that's India David Theft, THEFT, Center, CENTER.org. So IDTheftCenter.org. If you need immediate assistance, you need help with a case and you need help with recovery, you can live chat with us on the website, which some folks do, or you can call us at our toll-free number, which is 888-400-5530.
Eva, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, and we really appreciate the important work that the ITRC is doing to support identity theft victims and to raise awareness for everyone. Thank you as well to our viewers for joining us today, and please stay tuned for our next session where we'll dive into more global perspectives on online safety.
Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure.